The Jeff Younger Show is on. Dedicated to my sons, James and Jude.
Happy Thanksgiving. Today I want to talk about why giving thanks actually matters. Not the Hallmark version, but the real mechanics of what happens inside of a man when he cultivates gratitude and what happens when he doesn't. The question most men never ask, what does it mean to truly give thanks? I'm not talking about going through the motions at the dinner table here. I'm talking about actually to orient your soul towards gratitude as a discipline. You may never thought of gratitude as a discipline before. I'm going to invite you to do that in this video. The ancients understood something that frankly we've just forgotten. Aristotle defined gratitude as the proper response to what he calls charis, a favor freely given, not payment for services rendered, not an exchange, but a gift that has no expectation of return. And here's the critical insight. Feeling grateful is fundamentally about recognizing reality correctly. Remember, this is a realist show. We talk about how the world really works. Gratitude helps you grasp reality. When you give thanks, you're acknowledging three things simultaneously. First, that you needed something. Second, that you received it. And third, that it came from outside yourself. And most men resist all three of those. They can never admit these things to themselves. So let's start then with this resistance and look at the mechanics of ingratitude. The ungrateful man lives in a fantasy world. He imagines himself as purely self-sufficient. He tells himself that whatever he has, he must have earned it, that whatever came to him was owed, and he recognizes no gift because he never will recognize the giver. This is the spiritual equivalent of a closed fist. Nothing goes out because you can't put anything in. Nothing can fit in. Aristotle identified the specific ways we destroy gratitude in ourselves, and there's only a few ways you do it. That's why you can learn to easily recognize it in yourself. We'll tell ourselves that the favor was given for the giver's own sake. I did that to help me because it helps him in some way, right? Not for our sake. We say, oh, it just happened by luck. Some guy just gave this to me as pure chance, so he doesn't deserve any thanks. It was just pure luck. We claim that we were owed it anyway. So it wasn't really a favor, and we don't think of it that way. Well, let me tell you something. Every one of those moves is a lie that you tell yourself to avoid the vulnerability of being a receiver, of receiving a gift, of being the recipient of the pure generosity of another soul. So let's look at what it would look like if you were grateful. The mechanics of Thanksgiving. Well, first of all, real Thanksgiving, like I said, requires you to see the world as it is. You have to see clearly. You exist and you don't create yourself. You're breathing, but you don't design the air. You have people who showed up when you needed them and you didn't compel their love. The ancients said that the greatest favors are those that are given in times of greatest need, when the help was difficult to provide, when the helper was the only one or the first one who stepped forward. And these deserve the deepest thanks because they reveal the most about what was truly given. When someone stands by you in poverty or exile, even with small services, and I'm talking small services, I'm talking about maybe just a meal, maybe just a friendly word or a text that just encouraged you at that right moment when things could have gone the other way. The greatness of your need and the timeliness of their action are what constitute a true favor. You weren't owed that, my friend. You were not owed that. It was given. YouTube's algorithm is designed by people who think you need to be protected from ideas like the ones on this channel. They're not going to recommend me to you. So if you want to keep getting this content, you have to tell the machine. Subscribe, click the bell. Look, I'm not building a movement. I'm not selling you a course. I'm giving you information that took me 35 years to acquire, and I'm giving it to you for free because my sons can't hear it any other way. If that's useful to you, subscribe. If it's not, go watch something else. But if you're still here, you're probably the kind of man who should be here. So act like it. Subscribe. So what spiritual posture should you hold towards acts like that? Well, here's what the Thanksgiving discipline actually does to a man. First, it teaches you to see the real world. You're not self-made. You're not self-sustained. Every breath is received. This is not some weakness, man. It's truth. Like, people love to talk about how they're self-made, but everybody exists in a community. Okay? And you're standing with other people, whether you know it or not. And men who can't face this truth that they exist in a community, to be honest with you, they can't be trusted with anything. They can't be trusted with the fact that they owe other people and that they should be at least grateful for what their community has been able to give them, however small, that they wouldn't have had. If they can't do that, what can you really trust such a man with at all? The second thing it does is it opens up your hand. The man who receives freely can give freely. The man who admits that he's been helped can help others. Generosity flows from gratitude. The ungrateful man cannot be generous. You can only be generous if you're thankful for what others have given you. The miser is always the man who believes he earned everything and owes nothing. And guess what? Everyone hates him. And in the end, he hates himself. The third thing is that gratitude orients you to what the ancients called the source of all gifts. Not just human givers, but your parents, your ancestors, the men who built the civilization you inherited, those people, not just those people, but beyond them to whatever stands behind all giving, God. The ancient philosophers understood that happiness itself is a received gift. It's the activation of your highest capacities in accordance with virtue. But even those capacities that you have were given to you. You didn't design your mind. You didn't create your will. These are all gifts that were given to you by the Almighty, the creator of the universe. So how do you do this? And what do you do with this? Well, today, every day, deliberately name what you've received. Don't do it vaguely, don't say, oh, I'm just thankful. No. Specifically say thank you to a specific person for a specific act, for a specific thing that you received. It could be food, shelter. It could be encouragement. It could have been the inheritance of knowledge, the possessions of a culture that were handed to you by a teacher. Could have been a coach that made you better. Frankly, why don't you just give thanks that you exist at all? That's not necessary in this universe. You were given the gift of existence. It means to resist the internal voices that just want to explain everything away in very self-serving stories, by the way, that always make you the hero, that always make you the guy that's owed and never the guy that owes. Don't tell yourself you earned everything. Some things you did earn, but not everything. Don't tell yourself it was all luck. It's all just chance. Don't tell yourself it was all owed. See the gifts as gifts. Name the givers and give thanks to them. Okay, this is not a sentiment. This is not an emotion I'm talking about. It's a discipline of seeing the world clearly and understanding that you live in a community and that you live in a created universe. And men who can see this have the capacity to act rightly, and men who can't see this lack the capacity to act rightly. Well, that's all for today. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next time. We all do training. Here's something that most people don't understand. You're not just watching the algorithm. You think you're training yourself, But the algorithm is training you. Every scroll, every pause, every click, it's learning what keeps you passive, what keeps you compliant, what keeps you watching instead of doing. And it's good at its job, better than you think. But here's the thing, you can train it back. Subscribe to the channel, and you're giving it an instruction. You're saying more of this, less of what you think I want. That's the only lever you have. Use it or don't. But understand, if you don't tell the machine what to feed you, it'll decide for you. And it won't decide based on what makes you stronger, like this thing, but on what makes the algorithm richer. Subscribe. Train the algorithm before it finishes training you.
The Jeff Younger Show, signing off.